So this is my post-fight reaction to Steven Nelson versus Diego Pacheco. That fight was a little harder than what Pacheco expected, I guess. From what, hey, the way he was looking at the end of the fight, you can kind of tell that he was in a war. No matter what people say, this is definitely a tough fight. This is tougher than most of the fights you've seen Pacheco in, or Berlanga, or most of the other guys at 168. This is why a lot of people wanted certain guys to fight Steven Nelson, because they knew he was going to be a tough test. And that's what Pacheco ended up finding out. And that wasn't an easy fight for him, especially the last 2 or 3 rounds. Pacheco was taking some hard shots from Nelson. Nelson was taking the fight to him. Like, in a lot of situations, you can kind of tell that Pacheco did not want to exchange a lot of times. Like, we really found out in this fight, Pacheco was really ready to fight. And he's battle tested, and he's ready. But Nelson showed that, a lot of guys at 168 definitely don't want to face him. Now, I've heard a lot of people make a big fuss about Caleb Plant when he fought Trevor McCumbee, but I want to see if everybody gives Steven Nelson more credit than what McCumbee would get. Because what McCumbee did and what Nelson did, two different things. Nelson did way more than what he did. And he went out boxing early in the fight, throwing some good jabs, was able to go punch for punch with Pacheco. He got hurt, I want to say, early in the middle part of the fight, and had a cut over his eye. Started to stand in front of Pacheco a little bit too much, started to slow down, started to catch a second, third wind towards the end of the middle of the fight, towards the 7th, 8th round. He started to catch his wind again and was a little more aggressive. Pacheco was doing a good job throwing a jab over the fight. Wasn't really counterpunching that much. When he was landing, but he was being more so aggressive, because Nelson would slow down after a while, or after he'll throw the jab, he would just kind of move around, and Pacheco was trying to catch him running into certain shots. But he was moving from left to right, though. The way Nelson was boxing, he was giving the edge, man. It was hard to really say who was dominating early on and who wasn't. It looked like early on Nelson was. He had an edge in the fight. Whenever he wanted to do certain things, he made it happen. That's definitely what I seen. He's a tough fight for anybody at 168. This is why you have the fights. And you got to give Diego Pacheco credit, because a lot of guys at that weight class wouldn't face Nelson. So this is why he's considered one of the toughest guys, if not the toughest guy at 168, because he just fought a guy that a lot of people don't want to fight. They feel like they wasted their time fighting. And Pacheco just confirmed why a lot of people don't want to fight him, because he's a hard test. He fought him all the way to the last bell. He had him out on his feet plenty of times in the fight. Had him buzzed a lot. Pacheco did a good job making sure that Nelson knows that he was going to use his length, his power, the power that Pacheco was displaying. Nelson was afraid to go in there early on in the middle rounds. He was taking his time. But later on in the fight, he just said, I'm just going to do whatever. I'm not going to go into this fight, and I'm going to leave everything out there. And that's what he did. The last 2 rounds, Nelson definitely took the fight to Pacheco. I will say that. Pacheco almost had Nelson out of there at the end of a couple of rounds, but, Nelson has a chin, and he was able to take those punches very flush, the same way that Pacheco was able to. This was a very close fight. I don't know if people want to give credit to each boxer, but this was a very, very close fight. Could have easily been a draw. But, Pacheco was the winner in this fight, and he earned his victory. But at the same time, he knew that he was in a real fight. This is going to be one of the toughest fights he's going to be in. And the way Nelson came out and was able to move around and box with Pacheco, it just showed a lot. It shows that the skill level was there with Nelson. He probably could have did a lot of things different, or Probably would have changed a couple of things how he went about the fight, but he had a good strategy the whole time, and he came in prepared and he left it all on the line. And Pacheco was definitely in the fight. You could definitely tell that he was in a fight at the end of this fight. But he ended up winning, unanimous decision, Pacheco. But that's all I got. Like and subscribe.